All right, babes, I got a treat for you today because we're gonna do what you all love to do, which is destashing. I have come to notice that this seems to be your favorite format of series on my channel, which I totally understand because it just itches that instant gratification spot that we all have somewhere in our brain, and we just want to see somebody do things and see the results straight away. I get it, and that's why I'm not gonna resist. I'm gonna give you what you want. If you have been a subscriber for a while, you know I live in a one-bedroom apartment in London and I don't have room for all of the beautiful fabrics that I keep buying. I just can't stop myself. This is actually a question that I do get a lot, which is, do you buy fabrics specifically for projects that you know are gonna happen, or do you just buy fabrics whenever you see them? And unfortunately, I have to say more so maybe the latter, because how else would we have ended up in this mess? I buy fabrics whenever I need them for specific projects that I know are gonna happen. However, whenever I go out and do that, I also buy other fabrics that I feel like I want, I need, are just like putting their spells on me and I just cannot resist. And those fabrics, those beautiful, beautiful magic treasures, are in clear IKEA boxes under my bed and also in this Calyx shelf behind me right here. And they're just waiting, screaming, begging, praying to be finally made into beautiful garments. And this is what this series is about. Having said that, what are we gonna do today? I actually went to Paris recently, which was lovely. Definitely an experience. If you've ever been to Paris, you probably know what I mean. At the same time, I also came down with shingles, which was not great, and which is why I had a bit of a break in the mid of May and I didn't upload any videos. So that really put me in a tough spot because I was going away, I had to recover for that. At the same time, we all know I love making new things for trips that I take. So I made a tiny little inspo board. I wanted to keep it realistic. That inspo board included a picture of this gingham skirt, which I felt like was so Parisian, probably a little bit on the nose, but I really just loved the idea of a simple tiered gingham skirt. And I also wanted to make comfortable wide-legged trousers, which were inspired by things like these here. Luckily, I felt good enough in the last 2 days or so before I went on the trip to actually make those things. I obviously filmed the process, so let's start off with the gingham skirt. I'm gonna show you how it came together. It was a really quick and easy project, and I'm also gonna give you some rough measurements for how I made that skirt pattern. So let's jump right into it. All right, let's get started by sketching out the pattern for the skirt. I use ProCreate on my iPad to do these things. As you can see here, I have all of my sketches right here. Whenever I have an idea or I'm playing with a silhouette or design, I usually sketch it out on my iPad. This, for example, is the Olympia dress that I launched a couple weeks ago. Or here we have a more mature sketch of my couture dress that I made earlier this year. I love this program. It's so easy to use. It doesn't really have a limit to what you can do with it. You can make the most insane illustrations with it, or really just basic sketches like I do. Truthfully, I wouldn't mind learning a little bit more about this program. I think there's a lot that I'm missing out on, and I'm thinking about doing an online course for this, which brings me to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is one of the world's largest learning communities for creatives. The amazing thing about Skillshare is that it has an extensive range of courses in almost any field you can imagine to help you advance your skills and learn new things every day. It doesn't matter if you're in film, photography, music, or, like me, want to enhance your illustration skills. Something I was very excited to find was that they not only offer a range of courses in ProCreate, they also offer unique learning paths, which is basically a set of curated classes that build on one another, that really help you hone in on those skills and reinforce lessons learned. I'm very excited about this learning path particularly, specifically focused on mastering illustration techniques. It teaches me high-level things such as how to find my personal art style, but also very practical skills such as how to create my own brushes in the app, which is something that I always wanted to know. The first 500 people to use the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Now that we got that done, let's jump into the pattern for this skirt. So basically, all you need to wrap your head around is the fact that the skirt is really just 3 rectangles. I utilized 4 meters of gingham fabric and had a little bit of leftover, which I think I will use for a top. Let's see about that later. So if you think that you have 4 meters worth of fabric. We are gonna tier that up quite literally. The first tier that you want to create should be able to wrap around the widest part of your waist and reach from your belly button down to your hip crease where your legs start. So if you measure from your belly button down to your hip crease, you take that measurement, that is the height of the rectangle, and the width of it is literally the circumference of your thumb plus a little bit of ease, let's say 5 centimeters. So that is the first tier that you want to create. For the second tier, I decided to make it the exact same height as the first one and make it half of the entirety of the width of the fabric that I had. So since I had 4 meters, I decided to make that 2 meters plus maybe a little something something. So roughly 50% of the width was utilized for this tier. And then the last tier, I decided to make a little bit taller than the first two, just to give it a little bit more gravitas, so to speak. So since my first 2 tiers were about 24-ish centimeters high, I decided to make the last tier around 35 centimeters high. And then for that one, I literally utilized the entire width of the fabric that I had. So if we break it down, for me personally, my first tier was about 115 centimeters wide, because that wraps around the widest part of my hips plus some ease. The second tier was around 200 centimeters wide. That was half of what I had in terms of total length of my fabric. And then the third tier was 400 centimeters wide. And that kind of gives you the proportions of the skirt that I'm gonna end up with. And then this, what you can see here, was the leftover that I had from my fabric, and I'm definitely gonna do something with that. Let's see what it's gonna be. So each of these are now going to receive 2 rows of basting stitches up here and up here. And then I gather each one down to the circumference of the next, sort of. So I have now attached, or I've now given the lowest tier, which is the biggest tier, 2 basting stitches. I now need to find both the half point of this super long panel, so I'm folding it in half, and then I need to find my quarter points, and I think that's gonna make it easier for me to ruffle down everything eventually to the same distance, or like that there's an evenly spaced amount of ruffle. So I've just snipped the half point, and now what I've already folded in half, I'm gonna fold in half again, and that is going to give me my quarter points. And now I'm having a bit of a deja vu because I have to sit down and ruffle this to the next tier, and it reminds me of the haute couture dress that I made a couple months ago. Right, so as I have been ruffling down the third tier, I have been taking in the second tier by quite a bit. I think this is now about as big as my last tier was in the beginning. I need to measure this. I think this is maybe roughly 2 meters. So I have gathered down 4 meters to 2 meters, and now I need to figure out how much I want the last tier to be, because obviously it shouldn't be fitted like this. So what I have left needs to be gathered. I also need to shorten this section, it's just too high. So I need to recut a few pieces. Cute! Let's insert an elastic waistband and then we're done. So I just fold the skirt, right sides touching, and now I'm gonna pin together the center back. I think this is gonna be the center back since we only have one seam. I'm gonna sew and serge this, and then I'll create the waistband. I'm gonna try and make sure that the gingham aligns, because I think this is gonna look neat, especially on that first tier. Once I have serged the upper end of my first tier, I'm just gonna fold it over and top stitch it to create a tunnel. But first I want to check all the elastics I've got and try and choose a good one. So that's a nice height. Is that too small? Yeah, that is too small. Let's not kid ourselves. So I'm just wrapping that around my waist to get a comfy fit. And I'm overlapping it a little bit. Yeah, that's good. It's almost all of it. Almost the whole thing. That's okay. So what we need to do is to fold over the top edge of the skirt by the amount of the elastic, or the height of the elastic. So I'm just gonna pin that down. And actually, I'm gonna try a trick this time. I'm gonna pin the elastic down here as well. And I'm sewing and leaving the elastic on the inside while I sew. And then I start pulling when it starts catching some tension. It's a 2-in-1 type move. That worked so well, and that was so easy. So now I'm just grabbing the two ends and I sew them together. Done. The other project that I made before I went away were those wide-legged gingham trousers, and that's actually literally just cotton shirting fabric, which might be a bit risky, but I felt like because there was actually zero tension on the trousers, it was safe to wear shirting for trousers. Let me know if you disagree in the comments. I made them, I actually wore them to the Louvre Museum, so let me show you how I put them together. So for the gingham pants, I'm gonna be quite rough today. I'm gonna play a wild card. I have this pattern here which I used for my IKEA curtain cord set in the fall, and I really like the fit of that one. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just reuse the pattern pieces. I know that because the top section of the waist was fitted, I'm gonna add a little bit of ease to that to make it wider, even wider than it is right now. And then I'm just gonna sew the two sides together. I'm gonna forfeit the inner leg seam to make it even less of a hassle to sew the trousers together. And I'm just gonna cut straight down here. This is where my double layer of fabric ends. I know that this reaches from my waist down to the floor, so I want them to be super long and oversized. So I think that's just what I'm gonna do. Very simple. Right, so that literally took me 2 minutes to cut. Let's hope we can sew it together just as fast. The first step is to literally just sew together the two sides as they are along the crotch seam. So I'm just going to place a bunch of pins to make sure nothing's moving about too much. And then I'm going to sew this seam. Once the crotch seam is sewn, we can open up front and back and then place them right sides touching. So I'm overturning the legs, sort of. And now the crotch seam is facing the right way, so right side's facing. And that already gives us the outline of the trousers. Because we're eyeballing this, now there's the question whether I want to sew this together first and try it on to see if it's too wide, or if I'm gonna put the pockets in straight away. Because if I put the pockets in straight away, then the width of the trousers is sort of like determined. I think because this is gonna have an elastic waistband, the width looks fine to me. It doesn't look like it's not gonna fit. So as it turns out, we're not gonna have an elastic waistband because I won't get into the trousers that way, so we need a zipper. And I have actually just seen very cool gingham pants on Pinterest lately that had the zipper in the center back, which looked quite nice to me. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. But because they're fitted now, I also don't think I'm gonna put pockets in the sides because that's just gonna make the side seams not look so nice. So I'm gonna focus on a nice fit instead, and maybe I'm then gonna put some pockets right here. So I'm just gonna refit some parts of the trousers now. Very cool. I like. Let's add the center back zipper. So the zipper is in. I have double stitched it. Everything's fitted. I tried on the pants and they fit very well. I have also cut back the waist seam a little bit, and now I'm going to cut some facing for my waist because I don't want to do a waistband, and I think it's going to look nice and clean this way. So now let's try and see if the facing fits. Right, so that's how that second project came together, and that brings us to today. I actually posted, or you could say relaunched, my poppy blouse last week. My poppy blouse is one of my most successful patterns on my Etsy shop, and I actually also featured it in a destashing video a couple of weeks ago. I think that was probably last month, where I hacked the pattern and gave it puff sleeves, and you all loved it so much that I obviously had to rework the pattern. So now I'm offering two versions of the poppy blouse, the original one and the one with the puff sleeves, and both of them come in one pattern pack together, which is great. However, might have been a little bit boring, that video, because, you know, didn't feature any new projects. This is one of the poppies that I made in that video, and I actually decided that I do want to make this my ultimate summer PJ. This is obviously something you could wear outside, and I think it's very cute, but due to the nature of this fabric, I just feel like it's so comfortable, it's so breathable, and it just looks like a PJ striped top, you know? And I have enough material left to make boxer short bottoms for it to complete the pajama. And this is where we're at today. Brings us to our scrap busting project of this video. I'm gonna use a trouser pattern that I have, that I always use, that I drafted myself. I'm gonna oversize it a little bit. I'm gonna give the boxer shorts obviously an elastic waistband to make it super comfortable, and just use some simple finishes to make this a really quick project. So let's get started. So the plan is pretty straightforward. I have this pattern right here, but you could also just grab an existing pair of boxer shorts that you have, or any type of trousers that you have, to get the curvature of the crotch seam that you need. That's really the most important thing, like how wide this needs to be for you. So basically what we need to make sure is, because this is a slip-on boxer short with an elasticated waistband, I just need to make sure that the opening at the waist is wide enough for me to get my bum through, if that makes sense. So this is what I triple checked right now. I'm not even gonna pin this down. I'm just gonna go rogue here. So I'm gonna utilize the entire width of the rectangular piece of fabric that I have right here. I'm gonna add a little bit more length up here. That's for my waistband later. And then I'm gonna also add a little bit more width just around the waist here. And then I'm gonna feed back into my 1 centimeter seam allowance that I usually have around the crotch, sort of like this. You can see now how this is quite a bit wider than the existing pattern, and the same applies over here. I'm gonna leave the length as it is because I can use that for any finishes that I want, but really that's the shape of the PJ trousers. So I'm immediately gonna pin this crotch seam right here, because this crotch seam is also the first thing we're gonna sew. Destashing doesn't always mean scrap busting, because I might just have the whole quantity of the fabric that I use for a given project in my stash. This time around, this is literally a scrap from a project that I made in the past, so that's always nice. So I'm gonna sew the crotch first, and then I'm gonna refold everything to sew the sides, and then we're basically almost done already. And now we open up the two layers and then fold the waists on top of each other like this. Boom, and we have something that looks like a trouser. Now I can sew together the sides. So I just tried on the shell and it fits like a glove, so I can go ahead and create the waistband and then do the finishing touches, which is really just the length of the shorts, and then that's that. This was literally, I sewed on this for 6 minutes so far, so maybe it's a 20-minute project, honestly. That just shows you how I always just do complicated stuff. I can't comprehend how easy it is to sew boxer shorts because I just never do it. I should do more easy projects. It's just, you know, those small wins, they're worth something. So now that the waist is serged, I am going to fold the waist over by an amount that fits a waistband that I have. So let me see, where are my elastics? Yeah, there we go. A white waistband. I'm gonna wrap that around my waist. Is it just me? Am I the only one struggling with these? There we go. This waistband is 2.5 centimeters, in fact, wide. That means we have to create a tunnel that is also 2.5. So I'm gonna wrap that around my waist. I don't want this to be too tight, right? Because this is a PJ, so it's supposed to be comfy. I'm gonna do the thing that I did the other day, where I'm gonna literally sew the elastic in while I sew. Let me change your position so you see what I do. We place this into our machine, and not only do we use the elastic as a guide, but also we immediately place it in the tunnel, which is so handy. 2 steps in one. Now I am going to overlap the elastic and sew over it a couple of times. Now I just let the elastic jump into the tunnel, and then I sew the tunnel shut. Alright, the boxes are assembled, and I also added this little, what is it actually? It's like a label, but not a label. You could also use it to hang it on a hook to the back side, because I noticed that whenever I make trousers, sometimes it's hard to discern the front from the back if it doesn't have a fly zip. So I did that because I don't actually own labels with the Thrills and Stitches logo on. Do let me know if you think I should get some, because this is something I've been contemplating for a while, and it would be nice to put my logo into my mix, and it would also help to discern the front from the back, so let me know what you think. And now that all of that is done and the waistband is done, I'm just gonna serge the ends, fold them over, sew them down, and then we're done. So let me show you what all of my makes look like in 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances, empty-handed?
Alright my friends, that was it today. This destashing took place over multiple days, actually multiple weeks. I made the gingham skirt and the gingham trousers just before I left for Paris. Here are a few pictures of me wearing them, so you know that I'm not lying to you. And I made the PJs after I came back. Unfortunately, I couldn't do that before, but I'm glad I busted that scrap that I had left from my puppy blouse. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed all of the projects. Let me know which ones you like the most. It is actually now a good 2 weeks, solid 2 weeks after I made the gingham skirt, and I'm wearing it today. I do love this one a lot, and I'm actually contemplating redoing it because I would love it to have pockets. Again, me not putting pockets into my projects when really I love to have them. Maybe you will see a version 2 of the skirt sometime soon. I'll keep you posted. Don't forget to use the link in my description to grab your month worth of Skillshare for free, and I see you next time. Bye bye.
To let us know